Guys, bam, back with another Portable Clint. Guys, I have known this next person, friend, and guest for 20 years. I've been in this business for 32 years. This guy is the most talented person I have ever met and I've ever worked with. Ladies and gentlemen, Simon Helberg. Woo!
You see that entrance?
Look at you, Simon.
All in a chair. Too.
Look at you, man.
Most talented. I was actually, I don't know if you know this, I was off camera
while
you were saying that.
Oh, really?
So
Simon.
I heard what you said. Thank you.
Listen, I'm just not saying that either.
You did say it,
but
you're
meant
not
it.
just saying it.
I'm not just saying it. I meant it from the bottom of my heart because anyway, we're going to get to it.
All right.
Okay, we're going to get to that.
I don't know why you're waiting.
Okay, no, I'm going to tell you. Okay, I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
We did Second City shows together. Is that true or false?
That is true.
Every show that we did, let's say we had to be there at 6 o'clock.
Sure.
You were there at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
Going over every scene.
I was a neurotic mess.
But Simon, I'll never forget that. I mean, that inspired me to take everything a little bit more serious because you were taking things so serious.
Yeah, I was very nervous and a perfectionist and worked maybe too hard. I paced myself into the ground and stayed very slender because of it.
Well, yeah, but I think I've picked up pacing because of you, because I will get to a set early and I will go, okay. And just
now
like
I stopped pacing.
Did you
that
really?
Was a thing of, it was a thing of the 90s, or when was that? 2000, the early aughts. I've stopped. It was too much. I think I overworked things. But yeah, that was a time of, I cared a lot about that.
Yeah, you did.
I needed to get out of my parents' house.
Were you living in your parents' house in 2000?
When we started that show, I remember I had a trash bag of props that I took to the theater.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. I would get there hours early. I worked so hard. Everything meant the world at that point.
And Simon, as we talked about right before we did this, we would meet at the farmer's market.
Yes, can we say where we are?
Yes, farmer's market.
We're at the farmer's market.
On Fairfax and 3rd.
That
we
is
would
true.
come here to rehearse.
Because we didn't have a place.
We didn't have a
do
place.
Anything.
And you used to live back there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I moved out of my parents' house like right when we started that show, and I moved to Orange Grove.
Yes, you did.
And then I would walk here.
Yep.
And I don't know why I didn't let you guys into my apartment.
Well, we did.
Okay, good.
We did.
I'm happy
we did.
To know I was,
but this was
nice.
like because we used to meet upstairs.
That's right. We would meet upstairs.
Yes.
You, me, and Ben and Craig.
Yes, it was a great crew, man.
And we would rehearse, and then we would eat eggs.
Yes.
Somewhere maybe before or in between, and then we would do that show.
Yeah. Okay, Simon.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never had a title
a Jew
to
on the show. Oh.
Yes. No. I've never had a title or a name for a show that I'm doing. One of these.
Okay.
But I'm going to name it.
Oh.
You ready? Yeah. Hollywood Nights.
Okay.
Because Hollywood Nights means so much to me. Because I'm going to work backwards.
Yes.
Some of my best times in Hollywood were the night times that we would perform afterwards.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Simon, those were some dang good times.
Yeah, we would hang out at the Improv.
Yes, in the back.
Yeah.
And then we would perform at Second City and then go next door to the bar.
Yeah, I wasn't even old enough to drink.
But you were still there.
I hope that doesn't get the Improv shut down. Yes, I was still there. And we would see all those, everyone would be coming. Remember Robin Williams was there?
Yes,
we would see, like, it was really cool. We tried to get him to come to one of our shows.
Yep.
Andy Dick and all those people. It was really, that was a very good time.
Okay, but I'm saying that Hollywood Nights,
yes,
because there was a movie when I was a kid, because we got HBO from the get-go.
Oh, now you're just showing off.
Yeah, now I'm showing off.
Yeah.
But there was this movie on there. There was a movie on there that really I loved. I loved this one movie.
Hollywood Nights.
Hollywood Nights.
I knew it.
Hollywood Nights. Now, your dad, I don't know if you know this, was in that movie.
I do know that. But that would be amazing if that was new information.
I know it, right? But something that I found out last night, Harriet Helberg cast that movie.
My mother.
Your mother. Did you know that?
I did know that. I'm sorry.
I knew you.
This would be great if it was like Harriet Springer.
Right?
Who's the real dad? Yes, I did know that.
Is that where your parents met?
No. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I did not know that.
No. But they had met only. I think it was only shortly before that. But yes, they they met independently of their professions, but those are those are, you know, the good professions to have in a relationship: casting, director, and actor.
Yeah,
It's a
it is.
symbiotic thing. So yes, they worked together a few times, and that movie was crazy. It was like one of those American Graffiti,
Yes.
70s.
But it was like the comedy version of
Yeah.
American
Yeah.
Graffiti.
Yes.
Okay, Simon, just a couple more things about your parents, and then we're moving on because I have to start there because that's where we start, right?
That's where I started.
Right. So, your mom, casting director, cast Carrie.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah.
And Barney Miller.
Yeah.
So some really, you know, Paramount films, television shows.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yes,
I don't know if you know that.
No, I did know that. I don't think I've ever seen Barney Miller.
Really?
Is it as scary as Carrie, or
No. It's the
lighter?
exact opposite.
Okay, good.
Your dad, was he friends with Mel Brooks?
You're like a terrible psychic.
It's terrible. And by the way, we're almost done with this subject, but just because when I was going through, I'm like, oh wow, he was in History of the World Part 1. He was in High Anxiety.
Spaceballs. A bunch of Mel Brooks.
Yes.
Yes, they worked together a few times, and I think were friendly in the context of that. Mel Brooks liked my dad a lot, liked to use him a lot in his movies. Yeah, I think it was 3 or 4 movies.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, very fun. My dad was started at the Groundlings, and so I grew up going to see those shows. Sketch comedy was in my blood from the beginning, I guess. And then it wasn't until we did our show that I really got to do it. Which was like a lifelong, I guess, dream. But I didn't think I was going to do it for a while. But boy, I don't know. When we all met, there was something pretty magical about it.
No, there was.
It's weird. It feels weird to talk about it because it doesn't really exist. It wasn't a famous kind of
Right.
That show, and it wasn't seen by millions of people, but it felt really special, didn't it? I don't know. It was a good group of
Simon,
people.
I loved it, and here's the thing about your school, this high school you went to, Crossroads.
Yes.
Has produced some of the sweetest people I have ever met.
That's good. My wife went to Crossroads.
Yes, your wife.
It is a sweet.
I had your roommate, Jason Ritter.
Yes.
Are you familiar with him?
I again, terrible. Second.
I believe you
love
went
the
to
character.
school with him. I believe you went to school with him in New York City. I'm sensing New York City, New York, NYU. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah.
But you guys were sweet, and you guys would get the most people to come watch our show.
You're right. It was like a large contingency of Crossroads people. Yeah, all those Joaquin and because there were a couple Ben and Gudrun and myself. We all went to Crossroads, so it was a very loyal following. And you're right. There would be a large amount of graduates from
New
Crossroads.
girl, what's her name? Emily Deschanel, and her sister would always come. Zoe.
Yeah.
John
Crosses
Ritter.
over. Yep, John Ritter. And Zoe, then Jake, who was also in our group.
Yes.
Went on to the
Yes.
New Girl. It's a very small world here at the farmers market.
Okay, when did you get your first headshot? How old were you?
Headshot. I was 17, I think, in New York, but it was a terrible headshot. I had spiky hair, but I made sure every little spike was like, because I didn't want it to look like a block on the camera, so I wanted to have a little space between every spike. You know, so that when they took the picture, I didn't look like Frankenstein. I wanted you to see through each spike proportionately.
I appreciate
These are
that.
the things that make. I knew at that point that's what makes or breaks an actor. So, it was a strange moment to do that because I was in school, and I didn't. My dad, as we talked about, is an actor, so he had agents that were willing to basically say hi, like meet me.
Right.
But so I got a headshot for them, but they didn't really do much with me. But they admired, I think, my hairstyle.
Okay, so what was your first gig that you booked? Where, in this coast or the other coast?
So yeah, it was over here. So
Okay.
I really. But actually, if there is anything interesting about headshots, there is this kind of little tidbit that might be interesting to someone, which was that my friend Jeremy,
Jeremy Connor?
yes, who went to Crossroads, took a picture of me standing like on PCH near the ocean. And
is this with your collar up?
I had like Superman.
Yes,
yeah.
I loved that picture, Simon.
Yeah, see, these pictures they're really famous amongst the circle that we roll in. So I had this picture. I met a manager out here through a friend that also went to our high school that was starting to act, and I was working in a restaurant at the time. This manager said, well, there's a Judd Apatow show that's casting, and she said, let me come, can I see any of your work? And I was doing a one-act play, not to drop names, for I think maybe 1.5 performances out in LA, and she came and saw it and was like, oh, okay, I'll send you in to meet Alison Jones. Do you have a headshot? And I said, well, I had this terrible one where I have these proportionate spikes coming out of my head, but I also have this picture my friend took, and it was the Superman shirt picture, which was not a traditional headshot, because I was just standing on the side of a road,
right,
looking like brooding.
Yeah.
And she said, this is great, let me use this. I went to meet Alison Jones. Alison called Endeavor, was the name of the agency at the time, before the official merger. Sure. And I got signed immediately, and everyone was like, this headshot, people were like, this is the best headshot ever. And then I went in, the other job I went in for that week was the Steve Martin sketch comedy show. I don't know if you remember.
I do not remember Steve Martin.
It ended up being, he produced it.
I know who Steve Martin is, but not,
okay,
but not his comedy show.
Not Martin Lawrence.
Okay.
That's Martin. Because you can't say the show Martin was a wonderful show. You have to say Martin.
Yes.
You can't say Martin. So, and Martin Short.
I love Martin Short.
Yes, me too. So anyway, these 2 jobs kind of changed my life. I dropped out of school. The Judd Apatow show, which was called Undeclared, and the Steve Martin show, which was called the Downer Channel. I dropped out of high school. I color Xeroxed this picture, and I got neither of the jobs. And I lived at home, and then I started going to Second City to take classes, working at a restaurant, feeling kind of stupid because I threw away, like, I was midway through NYU, and then I moved in with my parents and worked at a restaurant and had a color copy of a picture on the side of a highway, and no acting jobs.
Simon, I don't remember you working at a restaurant. What restaurant was that?
That restaurant, I worked at a few. That one was called Peerview. It is now, I believe it's Nobu now in Malibu.
Oh, never heard of it.
No, really?
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Just kidding. I was hoping. Okay. Nothing is sillier than talking about Nobu.
It's really good stuff.
I'm sure it's great.
You've never eaten
I've
Nobu?
not been to that one.
Okay.
It's too much of a sore spot.
I've only been to Nobu in Vegas when my brother gets it comped. So that's only.
Why does he get it comped?
Because he's a big gambler out there. I am not a big gambler, but he gambles and they throw him a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, does he win a lot? Or he must lose a lot?
Yeah, he does. No, but
because big could be losing a lot.
I know,
too,
but he's figured out a good method.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's figured out a good method. I mean, he's
Enough
not
to
like
get free sushi.
Yeah, he's not like a whale where they go, oh, he's here.
Yeah.
But he's good. He's good to go.
All right. No,
okay. Enough about my brother,
yeah,
Simon.
Seriously, I was already glazing over. What were we saying?
We were saying
working at restaurants, and so getting started.
Okay.
You want to talk about getting started?
Yeah, man.
I want to know how you got started, but I'm sure
that's a different time.
That'll be my my show.
So we're doing Second City.
We're doing Second City.
Did Nicole Garcia find you for Mad TV? What was your first big gig once we started doing Second City? Because I feel like I saw all of you.
You watched me grow.
I watched you grow.
It was fast in the context of what I guess Hollywood is, which is usually either never or years and years and years and years. And I didn't really. It all did kind of happen quickly. Like I started working quickly. I didn't become famous quickly. But I would say the first thing, I was working at a restaurant. I got a commercial, a Dunkin' Donuts commercial. Not to brag
I remember
again.
your commercial career.
Yeah, you were the I'd come to you.
Yes, you did, and I was always honored that you would call me up.
Touch the hem of your garment. And kiss it for luck. I got some commercials. I got some guest star parts. There was a show called The Weber Show with the brilliant Stephen Weber. I was working at a restaurant when that stuff started airing. I did get a little part in Undeclared, though I didn't get the role I dropped out of college for. I got these little things enough to kind of keep going, and then let me think. Mad TV. When did Mad TV?
I feel like this. I'm going to tell you how I remember it, and you see if it's right or wrong.
Okay.
Nicole Garcia
Yes.
came to one of our shows. She
Yes.
called in a couple of guys. She called you in specifically. You had to get 3 characters. There was a
Yeah.
handful that got called in.
Yeah.
And you got picked to be a series regular on
Yes,
it.
but there was a different casting director on at that time. Actually, I know this happened a lot during our show. There would be like, we would all get called in at different points. And
Yeah.
Nicole Garcia was the casting director, but she had left, I think, when I got the job. And
Okay.
I am forgetting the lovely woman who cast it. Anyhow, I think it was something that, like, I didn't really want to do it though. I'm not trying to be cool about it.
No,
Like, think
I
was a
hear
little
you.
bit, like,
Yes.
I wasn't. I wanted to do Saturday Night Live, and then I just held out, and I was like doing pilots that were failing a lot. But then I finally was like, you know what? I'll just go audition for Mad TV, and it was the same audition as SNL. Yeah, you do
Yeah.
like
3 characters and 3 impressions.
bunch of impressions, right? So I went in, and it was right. It was me and Ike Barinholtz. We all the bunch of us got cast around that time. Ike Barinholtz, Seth Meyers, Ron Peterson, anyway, a bunch of featured players, and I got it. And I went on. I was only on for 6 episodes, and it was really disappointing all around. Yeah.
Simon, here's the way I remember it. Again,
Okay,
if
all
you
right.
don't mind,
No,
if you don't
fine.
mind, I remember you shining at Second City. You had the best characters. You came up with the best characters. But when Mad
really
TV
dropped
came
the ball
out,
on Mad TV.
it was like, but it wasn't your fault. It
No,
was
it was
what
hard.
they gave you was
Yes.
not what you were strong at.
It didn't matter anything I had done before that sort of didn't come into play. Once I was there, it was kind of like I would write a few things, and nothing ever really made it. All that I ever ended up doing was stuff that they had written, and it was usually playing like little kids or something.
Yeah.
And they were concerned about me being too young. That was a big concern. They didn't really want me on the show. This is my memory. They didn't want me on the show, but the head of Fox at that time really was like pressuring them to put me on. This woman, Gail Berman, who is still doing tons of things in the world. So she pressured them, and they did not want me because they thought I was too young, and they didn't. Whatever, I don't know what else. But my audition was a great audition. Like, it killed.
I'm sure.
But I left the room kind of feeling conflicted too, because I didn't know the show very well, and I just always wanted to be on SNL, and I had heard you can't do both, and I don't know why I didn't just audition for SNL, but I didn't. So I did
You've
that.
never auditioned for SNL?
No, so I did that, and then it was on for 6 episodes, and then I was let go after 6, and then
Okay, wait, hang on. When you were let go, did you think your career was done?
No, I didn't. I really didn't want to be on that show.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that because in hindsight I was let go or whatever. It's easier to look back and be like, I didn't want it anyway. I was upset when I was let go because it's not really a feeling that anybody loves. But I never ever got to do anything I wanted to do on that show. So from characters to sketches to even when I was in things they put me in, I don't think we had the same sensibility. There were so many insanely talented people also that I felt were kind of handcuffed there.
Yeah.
Anyhow, no, when I left that show, I did this show with Derek.
The Derek and Simon show.
So we immediately went and sold the show to HBO with Bernie Brillstein and Bob Odenkirk writing and directing. It was like a really cool thing. And at that moment, actually, Bernie Brillstein said, "Do you want to audition for SNL? Because they're clearing the house over there, and this would be the time. But just know this: if you get it, you move to New York, and that's it." And I had just come off of the Mad TV thing, and I had just written this thing with Derek, and I was like, I think I'm over my SNL ambitions. And that was the year that Bill and Andy and all those guys, and Bill Hader was in Derek and Simon and flew back from his audition to do it. And so I definitely still always do imagine the alternative path that could have existed where I had gone and auditioned instead of doing Derek and Simon, had just gone for SNL. But because that would have been the moment, I think. But I never it.
Simon, what's a good word for jealousy? And because jealousy,
Rage,
but
spite.
what's the opposite that you're not where it comes from a good place?
Is that a thing? I've never had anything
Well,
feel good.
But I remember.
Like envy or.
But it comes from a good place. Admiration. Here's this. I was always jealous that you were with Bernie Brillstein.
Okay.
Because that was John Belushi's manager.
Yes.
He managed so many great people.
Yes.
And you were part of that circle. So that was always cool in my book.
That was really cool. And I will never forget meeting him and having that exact... I had read his book and, he was the coolest guy ever. And it seemed like he would take these guys, and he was a really old school kind of manager too.
Yeah.
You know.
What did he teach you? Is there anything that you remember that he taught you? I'm going to ask you about that with a few people, but he's one of them.
Oh God, what did he teach me? Well, I think that he did teach me that managers and agents can, though I do think it is in the minority, can really, really love this business and really love creating and have a passion for the same things that we all do as creative people. And I say that it's rare because I do think just inherently managers and agents live more in on the business side.
Right.
I mean,
like,
and that's
where's
not
the money?
even negative, but I mean, that is what they
that is true.
do generally. But he was really a manager, as close to an artist as you could be, I would say, as a manager, a creative, a person who and just loved so deeply his clients and what he did. So I think I don't know if that's learning.
No, that's good. That's good.
It was a
okay,
special
Simon.
experience.
So after Mad TV, you book a show with our other buddy Nate Torrance. Do you know what show I'm talking about?
Studio 60 on the Sunset.
That's it. So you know about this.
Who's the psychic now?
Exactly.
Yes, I do know about that. Same audition, by the way, as Mad TV, plus a scene of Aaron Sorkin writing. So it was like you did 3 characters and impressions, and then you had to do like a few pages of that crazy Sorkin dialogue. So that was a weird one. But that was like I felt that all my dreams had come true when that happened, because to me it felt part of the reason I didn't want to go do SNL, or I wasn't offered it, but I didn't even want to pursue it, was because I felt like even though our show, Haha Fresh, with a J.
That's right.
Existed for, 80 people 2 times a week that would come and see it. I felt like we'd done it for how long? 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
And then Mad TV was fast, but it was like an intense exposure to that world. I was like done with sketch comedy. Didn't you feel? There's only so many things you can do in 3 minutes.
True.
Wearing children's overalls and falling down repeatedly on the stage.
Right.
So I was like, not that I've maxed out, but it was like, I wish more people got to see what we did, but I felt like, I had kind of told all those stories. I wanted to tell longer stories and play different kinds of characters. So Studio 60 came along and it was both. It was like, you can do sketch comedy and you can be in this Aaron Sorkin drama.
I loved that show.
Yeah, it was, but that was also kind of another, then Nate and I ended up kind of relegated to the background, really. Like we both had these intense auditions, and I don't know if he auditioned for the same role, but anyway, it was the part that I had auditioned for was Nate Cordry ended up getting.
Yes.
So,
okay, yeah.
So I would come in I'd come in a few times a week and spend 15 hours wearing, like army fatigues in the background, crossing, pretending to wait for my entrance on the live sketch comedy show within the show.
Right.
So you'd see me like in the background. It was a great thing to be in such great company, but I never got to again like stretch out. If that makes sense.
Last thing about that.
Okay.
Do you remember where that show took place on the show?
Where?
The Palladium. Did you remember?
Oh yeah.
That was where this place.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I
No,
don't.
that was it.
I'm just making sure. Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Did I do well?
You did good on that
I mean,
one.
I didn't
Simon.
know it, but you did.
Okay,
I
did.
like asking lots of questions where you know the answer.
Right.
And the other person knows the answer.
I know, right?
It's great.
Simon, what happens after Studio 60? But by the way, Simon, something that I'll never forget that you told me one time. And you told me this, and maybe it got bigger in my head, but you told me you had 11
Inches.
failed. 11. Hang on, let's wait for that thing to go by.
Get it.
11 failed pilots.
Did I?
Yes.
I don't think
one
I did.
in the very last
Why
one
would I
before.
brag about that?
Well, you weren't bragging because I would always ask you questions because I was literally watching you make it.
Okay.
11 failed pilots. That's what you told me. Again, I could be totally wrong, but the last one before your big stuff started happening was with Frank Oz.
Yeah. Okay. You're, for once in this whole interview, you are not fully accurate.
Okay. Dang. Okay.
You're close. It was not 11. That would not be.
I told a lot of people that story,
I'm
Simon.
sorry. Well, you made it bigger in time. I didn't.
Okay,
tell you
go
that.
ahead.
Maybe I did tell you that. But no, I would say I'd have to count, but I would say it would be more in the realm of 5, maybe. And you're right that I made a pilot with Frank Oz. Yeah, I would every year I would, but that's all. That was at the point that I had done. Even Studio 60, I was content to every year, if I could, do a failed pilot and make enough money to live and have health insurance and work. And I really wasn't like, I can't believe this show didn't go or that. The only time I was very upset that a pilot did not go was the first one I did because I thought that's what you do. You do a pilot and then you're like,
yeah.
And I was 19, living at home, and I was like, but once.
Which one was that?
That was a pilot called The Ruling Class, which was with these creators who had worked on The Simpsons, who did also create and write the part for me in this other show called The Funkhausers, which Frank Oz directed, which was written for me, and I then was still asked to audition, tested for it, and did not get the part that was written for me.
Wow.
And had to go back in again to ABC, where their arms were being twisted and they were being forced to watch me go in again to try to do something more. They basically wanted this character to be like they said Greg Brady, which is a pretty hip reference. And so they basically, which means less Jewish. That's a code. There's a lot of codes in this town. And so they wanted me to go in again to show them my, more Gentile side. I don't know what it was, but so I had to go in again. It was humiliating, and I did get it then. And then the show was super expensive and really kind of odd and didn't get picked up. And I did a lot of shows like that did not get picked up. When I did Studio 60, by that point I had probably done maybe in the realm
10?
of, no, 11.
Well, no, that would be the 11th one.
No, I don't know. Maybe 3 or 4 pilots that didn't happen. And then The Big Bang Theory came up, and I said I don't want to go in on this pilot. I'm on a show. It's Aaron Sorkin's show. It was kind of struggling. The show is a little bit misguided and kind of a mess, and also people weren't watching it. It still was with all of these brilliant people, and I thought I want to work with these brilliant people on this kind of show. So I'm not going to go in to play another nerd who loves Star Trek and talks about how he's never had sex and lives with his mom. I was like, it's just not what I want to do. And that was a terrible instinct that I had, I guess, because it was The Big Bang Theory. And my agent was like, you gotta go in, at least just go in. And I said no. And then finally I was like, fine, I'll go in. It's not gonna, even if I get it, I don't have to do it. So I went in, and they wanted me to do it. They wanted me to test for it.
Okay, wait. When you go in, who are you going in for the very first time?
I'm going in for Chuck Lorre. Is that his name? No, Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady, who created
Over there in Warner Brothers,
and the
at that building in Warner Brothers, the outside building?
Yes, we're friends. Used to have their production office, and is now there's the Claim Jumpers.
Yes,
so
yes.
That's where we usually see each other every
Exactly.
No, so there's like, right, it's like kind of an amazing, because they're friends, we used to work out of there. And anyhow, Valco Miller
Valco Miller.
Who
They
I
cast me in
know.
2.5 Men with Chuck Lorre.
Yeah.
So
I hugged them at the end of this run of Big Bang and
They're
was like,
awesome.
you guys are casting directors are the unsung heroes.
Amen, brother.
I'm not saying it because my mother was a casting director, but I'm always I attribute everything to. I'm still at a place in my career where it's like if the casting director is not the one, and I think this is their job, they're whispering in the ears of directors and they're creating the cast ideally for a movie, and for some reason they don't ever get. Everyone's always like, "Oh, how did the director find you?"
Yeah. They get no credit.
To me,
You're
it's
right.
still like, well, the director found me because the casting director,
Yeah.
Either forced him to look at me when he didn't want to, or introduced, me to him, or whatever, or her. So anyhow, this was Valco Miller.
Take me step by step, because I don't want to know about Big Bang Theory. I want to know how you booked Big Bang
that's
Theory.
fine. So you don't want to know.
No, but I'm sure everybody's asked you about that. I just like how you got the gig.
Yeah. So, well, after turning down the audition a couple of times, I went in because I think it is always good to audition, even if you're like convinced that you don't want to do it. It's
Right.
not a bad idea to, at least at that point, I guess, in my career, you should go meet people, and you never know what the room is going to be, and you never know how you're going to feel after you've done it, unless it is so antithetical to the very fabric of your being that
Right.
you do not want. But this was like, I was like, I kind of was like, too cool for school. I wanted to be on the Sorkin thing and stay on that. So I went in, I auditioned. They really liked me. I remember Chuck saying an odd thing, but it was a compliment. I did the audition. I did it one time. They were hysterically laughing, which which is always great.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you always hear things. And I always hear like, by the way, don't worry, they don't laugh at all.
Right,
I always hear that, like, in tests, no one laughs in this room. I mean, you've done it.
Yeah.
They laugh, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing
Yeah,
it,
if you're doing your thing right, they laugh.
yeah, that's, otherwise, because they like the material
Yes.
that you're in there doing.
This
But
is
if
true,
it's a
Simon.
comedy, they're going to laugh. It's the same thing with commercial auditions. They're always like, don't try to be funny. No, yes, try to
Yeah,
be funny.
yeah.
But if you're good at being funny, it doesn't look like you're trying to be funny, right?
Yeah, amen, brother. Yes.
It's it's a weird thing. Like, it's not that you're not milking it, but if you're a funny person, you're aware of what is funny.
Yes.
And if you're good at it, you should gear yourself towards making comedies fun.
Yes.
I think it's a very strange thing when
I
people
love
tell
what
you.
you're saying, yes.
Anyhow, so they laughed a lot. And Chuck goes, at the end of it, he just looks at me and he goes, well, actor goes home knowing he killed, which was like an odd thing to say.
That is an odd thing.
But I was like, it also felt good. It also felt like he felt like I had he had betrayed himself by laughing. How could you take
yes.
my?
Yeah.
It's my one card is that I'm, and
That's
you
funny, man.
you accessed this involuntary thing in me, and how dare you? No, but it was a funny thing to say, actually. But I will never forget the way he said that, and I left, and I knew that they liked me, and they wanted me to test, and that's when I said no, I really want to be on Studio 60. I heard that he had called my agent at that time and said,
Did he personally call?
I heard that he said, we want Simon to test for it, and she said, he's on Studio 60, and I heard that he had said something to the effect of, but nobody watches that show. And she said, well, but he's committed, and the truth was I wasn't actually contractually committed to Studio 60. So long story short, I said, all right, I'll go in and test, because I felt at that point like I started to grow fond of the script for Big Bang, which I wrote off, I think, a little bit too prematurely as being, it's another nerd or this or that. I thought, well, no, I do like this, and it would be a good opportunity. And so I went in and I tested, and I got it. And the test was kind of rocky. Like, they kind of put me through the ringer again. Like, when I went back in after nailing that audition, then Chuck kind of worked me a little bit before we went into CBS.
Because you made him mad because he laughed. Because he laughed.
Because then he's like, "What do you do?" He had me come in again to do it before like a work session, and he was like, "What are you doing? This is totally different."
Really?
Which made me.
Oh.
Which I kind of went home. I remember going back to my apartment and being like, between the work session and the test, was like, "That's like everyone's nightmare."
Yeah.
What do you do?
is.
That's not what you did. He's like, well.
Go get his audition tape.
Yeah, and I think it was what I did. I think I think it was. I think that's just the kind of thing that happens sometimes. From their perspective, they're thinking, was that this? Maybe it wasn't the same. I don't know. Anyhow, it made me a little crazy. And I tested for the Big Bang, and I was there with Kaylee, who was testing against another actress, and Jim Parsons was there. He had already been cast. He was reading with Kaylee and the other actress. I went in, I read with just the casting director. I left the room. The next morning, I heard that Kaylee got the show, and I did not hear for a week.
What are you thinking for that week? A show that you did not want?
I can tell you I can tell you that I was like, of course I was sort of like, fuck it. I didn't want it anyway. I'll go do it. And then I was kind of confused because there was like radio silence. And I thought, well, now I kind of do want it. Just because they don't want me.
Right. And
then I thought, well, they clearly are undecided about me. Like somebody is.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the network or this or that. And then the week passed, they give you 1 week. You give them a week, then you're done. Then your contract.
I didn't know that, so it's just.
So you
for
sign a
1 week,
contract that's like, I'll do your show for 7 years. Also, you have 5 business days to tell me if I get this part. It's a very weird, like, you're committing a lot, and there's a lot of legal stuff where their time ran out, which technically meant that I could go do another show, but it ran out, and I just still didn't hear from them, which is very unusual. Do you think this had
anything to do with Chuck knowing that you didn't want this at first, so now he's going to...
I think that, and I'm pretty positive that what was actually happening was that they wanted somebody else. I mean, I don't know, and I haven't dug too deep because I don't really want to know all that stuff, but I think that I'm pretty sure that there was another actor who ended up being on our show quite a bit, who's fantastic, who was like in the circle of people that they were auditioning in all the roles, from the first inception of the pilot, from Jim's character to Johnny's character. And I think that they were trying to get him on this show in one of these roles. And I think that they really wanted him to be my role. And I think that they were pushing, and I don't know if there was auditioning. I don't know. Somebody definitely was not convinced that I should be this part, for sure, because that's the only thing that could happen. And it makes sense to me. And so there was this week of someone, again, it's like with Mad TV. I don't know. I guess I'm very polarizing. There's always one person that really doesn't want me on the show. So I got it, and I wrote to Aaron Sorkin.
You wrote? How did you write?
I have an email, and I keep meaning to print it because it's a great email where I wrote to him and I said, "Hey, I got this pilot, and I just wanted to ask you 2 things. One is, can I have these few days off to shoot the pilot? And the other thing is, if it gets picked up, I want to." Well, this wasn't actually a technical... I didn't have to ask him for this because I wasn't contractually obligated, but I said I wanted to get your blessing to do this show, to do Big Bang Theory next season, rather than come back to Studio 60, because I'm a series regular on that, and I'm not on Studio 60, and I just wanted to tell you how much this experience has meant to me, and I understand, your feelings either way. And he wrote back, Simon, you heartless little ungrateful piece of... Just kidding. And he was like...
Oh, that's awesome.
And he said, they would have to pry the pen out of my cold, dead hands to get me to stop writing for you. It was a really sweet thing. I have that email.
That's awesome.
And I remember reading those first words. It was something like, you ungrateful little piece of... And then it like...
Were you
in perfect Sorkin, like dash, dash.
That's great, man.
It was like, no, they would... And he was so cool about it. And can you imagine that I mean, I honestly, I really would have turned down Big Bang.
I believe that.
I really did turn it down. I mean, I turned down each step, and I owe it to my agent, Leanne Cornell, at that time, who was like, don't be an idiot. And it was like a lot of people being, I don't know. It's weird how those things happen. But you don't know what any of this stuff is, You're not looking into the future the way you do.
Right, exactly. Thank you. How many seasons did you do of Big Bang Theory?
12.
No, you did 200 and like how many?
One more than failed pilots I did. 12.
Okay, here's my question. Here's my last question about the Big Bang Theory. Okay. Well, 2 questions. What did Chuck Lorre teach you?
What did he teach me? Well, let's see. there was I mean, part of it is something I think naturally that most of us on the show already had, which is kind of goes back to that showing up 3 hours early and pacing until your feet are bruised, which is just a work ethic, like a drive to always be at 100%. I mean, Chuck is really, he's an enigma in a lot of ways because he's kind of doing many different things at once, and a lot of it is imperceptible in the way that almost like a conductor is guiding the orchestra in a way that is somewhat intangible, but they are the heartbeat of the thing. They are the pulse of it, and there's a rhythm that he, as a musician too, I think has in his head, where it's like this natural kind of barometer for the truth of comedy. Like, I don't know how, and you don't know what you can't put it into words. He's not writing every single word of every script like Aaron Sorkin. He's not necessarily telling the cameras where they have to be, but he will do that when it's necessary, and he will do anything that needs to be done to make the comedy pop. All his shows have that same rhythm.
Yeah, they do.
They all have the same feeling, not characters, but the same clip to it and the same kind of again, it's like this ineffable thing. So in terms of what I learned from him, I guess I just I learned that to do something truly that works on a universal level, that it takes this kind of undying commitment to the material and this eagle eye like attention to detail, I guess. And it's great to see, because this is a guy who's running 7 shows at one time, and every detail is something that has to kind of pass his, the gates that go to his mind.
Right, but Simon, that's the reason why I think you were a big part of his world of that TV show, because you are like that.
Yeah, that's well, thank you. I think that's a lot of what was going on Big Bang. Most everybody was, and I guess maybe it is in the minority, but yeah, like a work ethic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never understood anything else. What else are you spending your time doing when you're working that isn't work?
Right.
And it is work also. And to me, it's a lot of the times it's more work than fun. I mean, I feel like the balance is it's like 80% work, which can be grueling and humbling, and then you're doing all of that so that the 20% of the other part, the performing, is hopefully free and fun. But most of it is work.
Okay,
isn't it?
Simon, yes. Let me ask you this. Everyone knows that you were a black belt when you were a kid.
Everyone.
Do you feel that you learning karate at a young age helped your worth ethic?
Yeah, I think you said worth ethic, which is a Freudian.
What is it?
Worth
ethic. What did I say?
You know what?
What am I saying?
You can watch this back.
Okay, work ethic.
On your channel. Do you have a channel? Is this happening?
Yeah, it's portableclintshow.com.
Nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes right to YouTube.
Yes. Well,
thanks for watching, Simon.
Yes.
Anyway,
work ethic,
right.
Karate.
Ethic.
Now it sounds weird.
Yeah, now it does.
Yeah, I think that is a huge part of what probably shaped me. It was because also those ages 5 to 10 is a really formative part of life.
I was watching TV a lot.
Me too, but I was doing that too. So I was like, I was going to karate every day, and then I was finishing my homework by 8 o'clock to watch Family Ties and
I love it,
and Cosby and all of those shows, because and you would do that. You only could watch, the TV was on one time, and those were the shows, and I was obsessed with that. But yeah, I'd say like working every day on going to a studio where I was surrounded by grown-ups and wearing uniforms and yelling at me and getting me to break boards, and then I was teaching classes because I became a black belt, and that's what you did. They would call me Mr. Helberg, and I was 9.5, which is absurd, and I didn't understand the irony, but yeah, so like everything I've ever done, I've only understood as an outlet for everything that I am thinking and feeling, which means like if I'm gonna play the piano, I feel like I have to figure out a way to like put my kind of blood and guts into that, and so I'll practice for 3-4 hours a day. You know,
Well, that's Simon. That's why I love you, because you put everything into everything you do.
Well,
I mean, seriously, that's what always stood out to me about you. Okay, Simon, we're gonna start winding down. Okay.
Okay.
So listen, I watched a lot of stuff on you last night, Simon. I pretty much knew 99% of it.
Okay.
I'm very thankful for that.
Good.
All the headshots that you take now, not headshots, but pictures of you, you have great pictures.
Thank you.
Do you kind of go for that when you're taking the picture? Like, how can I make?
As opposed to going for like the shittiest picture?
Yeah.
I try to take terrible pictures, but they always come out looking brilliant. You really are. So what is it you're asking?
I don't know,
Is there
Simon.
a method to taking a good picture?
But listen, I appreciate your pictures. How about that?
I've never talked to another grown man so much about my photogenic qualities.
Well, they're good stuff. They're really neat.
Thank you.
Neat. I mean, but seriously, it stood out to me. I'm like, every picture that's on the internet of them is really great.
I feel like you're being very generous.
I'm not. They all stand out.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm not a huge fan of. I don't love taking pictures, but thank you.
Okay, Simon, really quick, because remember, we're winding down.
I know.
You did a movie with Meryl Streep. What did she teach you?
What did she teach me?
I got 2 names coming up. I got Meryl Streep. What she teach you, and what did the Coen Brothers teach you? And then we're gonna.
That's 3 names.
I know.
Well,
that's
2
true.
of them are brothers.
Okay, all right. You're right. You win this one.
Guess
Simon.
which one? Okay, so excuse me. What did she teach me? So much, but I'll try to distill it down to something, which would be, I'd say that what I learned from watching her was that what makes her so great all the time, and obviously easier said than done because otherwise everyone would do it, is that she is always 100% alive in every single moment that she's on screen, meaning that there's nothing, she's never trying to accomplish any kind of preconceived idea of what the scene should be, or the character should be, or what the interaction between her and another person should look like. What she's doing is she's taken all the work, which speaking of work ethic, it's somebody who's worked for hundreds of hours probably on each and every role. So she's taken all that work and she's absorbed it, and then she shows up on set, and the scene only exists right there and then, in that moment between her and the other person. So there's not, if she goes up on a line, if there's a noise, if the other person is facing, does something different in a take that throws her, it's never about trying to correct anything. It's all part of what the scene is supposed to be.
Okay.
So there's a life that you watch in her. That's why when you're watching her, it's like impossibly real, because a lot of people, I think, try to paint this thing at home and then bring it to the set and sort of hold it up in front of the camera, as opposed to throw it out the window. And so what you see happening there is I watched her before. When you're on a movie set or any kind of set, how nothing at all is ever conducive to doing that, the best work you could do. Nothing is quiet, nothing is focused, nobody's saying like, Clint, why don't you take however long we're going to shut this down. You just prepare, focus. No, it's like there's a grip who's drilling in something to the wall, and lights are falling, and it doesn't matter if it's an emotional scene. So I would watch her sometimes before these scenes, and she would sit, and sometimes it was just funny, I think, to be sitting on a set where the tendency is to be very precious about what you're doing, as opposed to say, you know what? There's this big Scottish guy running in, like lifting the couch up that I'm sitting on before I'm about to do this emotional scene. And somehow those little weird moments show up in the scene that she's about to do. She brings all of that in. I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
or
it does.
super
It does.
abstract.
It does.
But it's like, if that all becomes part of it, everything is in, you know, there's no kind of out of bounds. So that's why it's like she can't have a moment that isn't truthful, because, and she seems to be laughing and crying at the same time. It's kind of like so anyhow, that's an abstract way maybe of describing it.
No, but I get it.
But what I learned is, like, don't be so precious. Don't expect that people are going to shut down for you to prepare yourself. And in fact, that is the gift. The gift is like that all of the life happening around you is real, and you can bring that into every scene. So that's maybe a too deep of a way of trying to answer your
Coen
question.
Brothers.
Coen Brothers, quick. What did I learn? Well, kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum.
By the way, there's no quick. I'm just trying I'm doing this for you.
I would say it's kind of different. I mean, they're not actors, so it's also a different thing I'm looking at. But they, you know how I was sort of talking about coming to the set and kind of throwing it, that if you can throw everything away and just be alive in that moment, I think that's an ideal way to approach acting in movies. But for the Coen Brothers, they're writers and directors, and so they actually are creating everything in their head. Every single thing on the script, on the page, was identical to the way it was.
Really?
Everything, every camera angle, they would storyboard it, so you would get sheets of. By the way, I was only in like.
But still.
One scene. But my experience with them was, you're getting to a T, to the letter. Every single thing has been worked out. So trust in them. There was no, every word was the same as it was on the page. And they had done something where I had auditioned for them 9 months before I shot this movie. It took a year from my audition to shoot the movie. So I show up on the set a year after I auditioned, and we rehearse the scene, and they say, you did this thing where your shoulders were more hunched in the audition, and right now you're sitting like this, but you were like this in the audition.
Oh, wow.
And I said, actually, it's funny because I intentionally tried to sit up straight, and they said, no, we like the way you were hunched. It's more like a rabbinical student who's been hunched over scripture. And I was like, oh my God. So they remembered from a year ago my posture.
Wow.
And for them it was...
That says a lot, Simon.
And for them it was, when they said, it's like a guy who's been hunched over scripture for years and years. That, to them, they saw that detail of my posture as this really significant character trait. So I think, so maybe I learned from them that all those details are I mean, you can create a character with, a slight hunch of the back, and it can tell a story. So
that's interesting, man.
Maybe that's
I love
something.
that.
I don't know. Yeah, I love them. Who doesn't love them?
Exactly.
Oh
that's the reason why you say it's just one small thing. You made it. I mean, you're in that world now. That's humongous to me.
Yeah.
That's humongous.
It was an honor.
What's the worst time in Hollywood for you?
What's the worst time?
Remember, nothing
Rush
personal.
Hour. No,
Nothing personal.
What do you mean the worst?
What was the time where you were like, I'm done with this whole business. I hate it. What was your least favorite time through this whole thing?
Well, I think I've been spoiled because I said how I didn't have that really long gap of dry spells. So, it felt when I dropped out of college, and my parents were very disappointed in that, and I did not get the part on Undeclared, and I did not get that part in that Steve Martin comedy show, and all of this hey, this kid's just in from New York. It was only probably a few weeks, but there was a lot of you're gonna get cast in this thing and that thing, and oh my God, and people were very excited to meet me. It was for just a few weeks, and it was a whole magical world. I had just been in college, and now I was I got signed and all this stuff, and then nothing happened. for like, this is gonna sound again spoiled, but probably for like 6 months, I would say. Like, I went on a ton of auditions, like, which is also fortunate, but sometimes 3 a day. I'd be changing in my car, and then I'd go work at this restaurant, and I wasn't getting any of them, and I was living at home, and I thought I was screwed. I just thought, like, I'm not gonna be able to be an actor, and then after that, for a while, at the end of every job, you think you're not going to be an actor. But I've been really, really lucky, so I haven't had, like, thank God, I guess, I haven't had to, like, do I need to quit?
Right. You never had that moment.
No.
It's a fun moment to have.
I'm
Simon.
sure
it's really neat.
But I also think I was too cocky to have that.
Well, that's good,
Isn't
though.
that
Don't you
weird?
think that?
I was
but don't you
so
think that?
cocky.
But that also helped you, I think.
It did. I just look back and I'm like, I cannot believe that I thought that I was just gonna drop out of school. And I remember my parents being like, you can't drop out of school, like, and we paid for this semester or this or that, and I'd be like, I'll give you all that money back when I get rich from doing this. And it was like, yeah, right. My parents were in the business, and they'd seen a lot of ups and downs. I was super cocky. I would go in and think, I am better than everybody else here. That was what I would like. And sometimes it was hard to think that. But I thought that was kind of how you had to exist. This like zero-sum game where it's like, I win and everyone else loses. And I don't think you actually do have to be that way. But I do think in some way it helps me get through that crazy weird time where you're like, because you don't think then, oh my God, I'd have to do 100 guest spots just to make a down payment on a house.
Yeah.
Because if I started to think like that, I would have probably just, jumped off a bridge. You think then, oh my God, I just made $500 today for doing this role, and I'm going to this job at a restaurant, and I will only make $20 tonight.
Right.
That's all that I thought.
Yeah.
And I thought $500 divided by 12. How many CDs is that? Okay. That's right. And not the kind you put in the bank. I was only thinking about buying music and maybe one day paying some rent in an apartment, but I was not. And that kind of helps, right?
Yeah, totally. Simon, I think the thoughts you had was great, and I think it needed to happen for you to get in what you have achieved in this business.
Yeah.
Because you've almost had like a Forrest Gump type of career.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you can play music really well, the fact that you've been on a great show, the fact that you've been in a
really
great
dim-witted.
Yeah. Okay, Simon. Okay, last minutes.
Yeah,
You know who I'm a
minute.
fan of? Is your wife, Jocelyn Town.
Yes. Oh, that's my. Again,
Yeah, did you know
more
that?
new information?
Jocelyn Town, she was in a show last year that I thought she did fantastic on. Do you know what show I'm talking about?
Yes.
She was on it 3 times. What show?
Yes. You're talking about not the Kaminsky Method.
Come on.
But you are talking about
Lodge
49.
I knew
Sorry,
you know. Okay.
I couldn't remember the number.
Anyway, I'm a fan of hers.
Me too. And wasn't she great on that show?
She was great. I even reached out to her to tell her that she did a fantastic job. I don't know if it was like one email.
She didn't mention it.
But really quick, your wife,
Your wife.
her uncle is Robert Town.
That is true.
That is very cool.
That is very cool.
I don't know if you know this, but he is very well known for directing Modern Problems.
What?
Yeah.
No, he's not.
No. Not Modern Problems.
You have confused another. I think my dad.
Your dad was in Modern Problems.
Robert Town directed this.
No, wait.
Little known Chevy Chase.
But your dad was in that movie. But another movie that I was really surprised that your co-uncle, what's his name? Co-uncle.
Yeah, we have a situation set up in the court system where we co-uncle our nieces and nephews.
Robert Town.
My uncle-in-law.
Everyone knows he directed this one movie.
He wrote. You're trying to say
he wrote
Chinatown?
No, Days of Thunder.
Oh yeah, he wrote that. Did he direct that too?
I don't know, but I was like, Days of Thunder. I dig that movie.
I like that.
Okay.
That and Hollywood Nights.
That and Hollywood Nights.
And Modern Problems exist somewhere.
Yes.
Under your hat.
Simon, anything else I need to know about you before we shut it down?
Well, I like that we've both evolved into...
What kind of hat is yours?
It's a, what is it, Stetson?
Stetson?
Yeah,
That's mine. Yeah.
Look at us.
Stetson Open Road.
On this, we have come a long way, and yet we've ended up at the same
Simon, not to brag, but I got to go to a callback at 11:50, so we got to wrap this up.
Do you end every show like
Yes.
that?
Especially when the other person is much bigger than me. I like to kind of throw that around.
Well, it's my callback. I look forward to seeing what you're going to bring
that's
today.
nice. Okay, Simon, one last favor.
Yes.
Wait, Simon,
Oh, no, how many more?
no, this is it. You know what's my favorite impression that you do, and I don't want you to do it because you feel like you do it a lot, is Ben Stiller.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't need to do it. Yeah. Is that what your callbacks were?
Yeah. Okay.
I have to say this. I love you so much. You were always the guy. I'm just going to say this as a plug, and as a truthful thing. You were always you were like the way that Farley was funny. How you could just. It didn't matter what the sketch was, you knew he was going to destroy. That was always you. It was always that. It was like, you remember the sketch with just the bongos and the Christmas sketch?
Yes.
And
Yorkshire Pipers.
yes, and it was like and you would just stand there, and it was like the audience would die. And I remember it was like if we ever had a sketch that was half-baked and we needed to figure out a way to end it, we would just have you come out. And anytime you were on stage, it was so you have the most incredible quality of being like this lovable baby. Is that a
that's
compliment?
good. No, it's good.
A
I'll take
lovable,
it.
but most babies are no, but this like boyish quality that was so sweet and so befuddled and just brilliantly funny. And I think about I remember so many things that we did together, but when I think about you on that stage, I do wish more of the world could see.
I know, we had
those
some
things,
funny
but you
sketches.
were-
Simon, thank you. I appreciate that, dude. I appreciate you doing this. You said yes from the get-go on this, and I've always appreciated timing was just always a thing.
We managed
But
to make
Simon,
it work.
thank you so much,
My
my brother.
pleasure. Thank
I
you.
always say this, and I don't want you, I say it in the emails and stuff. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this. I really appreciate it,
Thank
buddy.
you for having me.
Okay, Simon, tell everybody bye out there.
That's your catchphrase.
Yeah.
Bye out there.